Today, I wanted to try to see if I could beat Pokemon Scarlet playing as Carmine. Carmine was introduced in the Teal Mask DLC, and as such, she is a brand new character, so I thought let's use these extra rules and make it a bit more painful while trying to complete the goal of becoming the champion, and of course, completing all of Paldea. So, if you guys are ready, let's get started. I'm going to be honest with you guys, there's not really much we can do until we get to Kitakami, so for the sake of my sanity and your sanity, let's skip along to where our story actually begins, the moment we get the call to head out to Kitakami, our hometown. Alright, home sweet home, here we are. Now, I'll just have to quickly leave my classmates behind to go and capture one out of the two Pokemon that we need before we start our journey around in Kitakami and of course Paldea. And that's going to be Poochyena. This little dark-type Pokemon will be joining us as it is the first Pokemon which Carmine actually uses when you meet her in the DLC. But like I mentioned, we still need to get one more Pokemon. And after running around a little bit, we actually managed to find an awesome little Vulpix which will be joining our squad as well. Now, this Firefox friend of ours will be helping us against the first two gyms, which are of course going to be Bug and Grass, so it will be really useful in Paldea. Now, are we ready? Yup. Well, where do we start our journey? Well, it's going to be over at the gym in Cortondo where we find Katie. First, we make sure to push through her giant bean, and then it's battle time, and of course she uses Bug type, so it should be relatively easy. Now, given our type advantage, using Vulpix would make the most sense here, so we put it up front, and we just use 2 Embers to defeat Nimble, and the same follows for the Tarantula as it gets the same fate after 2 double Embers. Only Teddy Urza poses really any sort of challenge, but lucky for us, Katie makes sure to terrestrialize it, which actually essentially makes it weaker to our little Embers. And she even misses the Fury Swipe, but unfortunately Vulpix doesn't last forever, and unfortunately Poochyena can't handle the single Fury Swipe. This wasn't the outcome we expected. So was that what was supposed to happen? No, but does that mean we should give up? Yes, wait, no, I mean no, we shouldn't give up. We just try again. We do things a bit differently though. This time Poochyena goes out first to tank and take some damage from the Nimble, which works as we're then able to hit 2 bites to defeat the Nimble, and because we managed to hit the Tarantula 1 time with bite, it allows our Vulpix to defeat it quickly and level up to get Incinerate. And so now that the Teddy Urza is here, we are full health and we can use Incinerate while hoping that the Teddy Urza misses Fury Cutter, which it doesn't do. However, it only hits us 2 times, which means we have enough health to survive a second hit and then 1 more Incinerate later and we've defeated it, meaning Katie stood no chance against the power of Kitakami's favorite girl. Next on our challenge list are Cloth and Brassias, but to defeat them, we will require some extra help. So back to Kitakami we go to capture some new friends. One of these will be found actually in the hills of Kitakami, so we'll be capturing Poltergeist. Now, this will be added to our squad. However, there's still something we should pick up while we are in Kitakami. So we head over to the Paradise Barrens, and inside of this tiny little cave, we find the Unremarkable Teacup, which can be used to evolve Poltergeist right away into a Sinistcha. So now we should have a decent Pokemon for our challenge against Cloth as well. As for Cloth though, I will be honest, he was defeated relatively quickly with the help of a single Matcha Gotcha, which is a new move from Sinistcha. A new move which actually got introduced in the DLC and is really helpful. After getting some extra help from, of course, Arven, we defeat the big guy, and only another 2 quick hits later, we even get a burn. And yes, Matcha Gotcha has a secondary effect which is actually able to burn the target itself, and it's actually really strange because it even heals itself by basically throwing piping hot tea on other people. It is a bit bizarre, but either way, we got our hands on the Herba Mystica, and next time, we're going to be heading over to Brassias. Once we make it over to Artisan and we catch a bunch of Sunflora roaming around the time, we are ready to now battle the elegant gym leader, Brassias. Now, Brassias uses Grass-type Pokemon mainly, so Vulpix is out first, with Incinerate doing loads of damage. However, we do get put to sleep, which eventually, though, the Vulpix does wake up from and is able to defeat the Petililli, which would just require 1 more hit, and a Smoliv just comes out and we smack it in the face with a double trouble Incinerate and manage to defeat it. Finally, there is Sudowoodo, which terrestrializes, which is actually again good for us because it makes it weaker. We hit it with 1 Incinerate and also damage to avoid the hit from Sudowoodo, which lets us do huge damage before the Rock Slide finally does hit us and takes our boy out. So Sinistcha comes in instead and finishes off the Sudowoodo with 2 Matcha Gotchas. I'm telling you, this Matcha Gotcha move is so strong, and as such, we've defeated the second gym leader, but where do we go next? Well, we are in the search of Bombardier and Giacomo. Those two will be quite a handful for our team, as honestly we don't really have the strongest of teammates right now as of yet, but let's just do what we can. So before we reach the big bird, we do evolve Pooch into a mighty hyena, and before you know it, we've reached Bombardier. Now in this battle, we'll be using Sinistra first and set up Life Dew, a move which should be restoring our HP, and it would also restore, I think, the HP of our teammates, but we're not in a double battle, so it doesn't really matter. That is mostly just spamming whatever moves might do some damage against it, like Matcha Gotcha, which does a decent chunk of damage. Mighty hyena does have to come out next as well, and we use Howl to boost our attack stat, and then just hit Bite after Bite, which eventually works, and we then get help from Arven to defeat this fully grown big bird. After doing that, we take the Herba Mystica, which means we can head over to our next mission. Alright champs, it's time to rumble! I mean, it's time to battle Giacomo. The grunts serve not much of a roadblock, and after defeating 30 or so grunt Pokemon, we are taking him on as well. The thing with Giacomo is that he uses Dark-type Pokemon. As such, we'll start with Vulpix against the Ponyard because, well, it should be able to do a decent amount of damage to assure that we get the victory. Then we managed to actually hit the Ponyard with Incinerate. Then with the Reverum, it comes out with Wicked Torque, destroying our poor Vulpix, so we send in Mighty hyena next, so our ability Intimidate can lower its attack stat. Then we use 2 Howls 2 times to make sure our attack stat is higher, and we go for multiple bites before Mighty hyena also falls in battle, leaving us with only Sinistra. Now with Matcha Gotcha to try to take down the second Starmobile, we actually, luckily, we avoid the metal sound. We're able to hit the second time around, and honestly, the fact that Matcha Gotcha also heals us is what saves us in this battle, and we're able to defeat the Reverum after a few more hits. And as such, we've taken down our first Star Boss team member. Before we head off to another one of our challenges, I think we should go back to Kitakami and make sure we capture Morpeko. This little electric dark type is the second to last one we need before our team is actually fully completed, because yes, she only uses 5 Pokemon in the first DLC. We also give Mighty hyena some new moves like Fire Fang and Ice Fang, as well as Crunch, which will also be needed down the line in this journey. We'll really need those moves. We head back to now basically just go into the Iono battle, but right next, before we can even do that, right on cue, Nemona wants to fight us. We oblige and of course start the battle. Now she uses Rockruff first, so with our newly acquired Will-O-Wisp, we burn it using Vulpix. Next we spam Incinerate, hoping to defeat it fast. However, Palmy comes in next, and here we manage to Incinerate it a few times, but unfortunately it doesn't last forever, so Sinistra has to come and complete the battle instead. Luckily, the Floragato is not strong, so our Sinistra is able to take it down in quick fashion by spamming a few foul plays. Then that means we defeated Nemona, and I don't have to deal with her for at least a little bit longer. After some quick hide and seek, we are ready for Iono. First up is her Wattrel, which we end up losing our Vulpix against, since Paralyze and Outspeeds basically ruin us. Due to this, we send out our buddy Mighty hyena with Howl to set up our attack to be much stronger. Since the Pluck from Wattrel won't do anything, we get paralyzed instead, but our damage should now be 2 times harder than before. So when Bellybolt comes out, we manage to actually do crazy damage to it, but unfortunately due to paralysis, we get outsped and defeated in the end. So Sinistra comes in, and with some Matcha Gotchas, it's enough to remove the Bellybolt from this world, leaving only Luxio and Mismagius to go. We match Gotcha, or Matcha Gotcha Luxio, because he can't handle a singular hit before he falls totally apart, leaving only Mismagius to deal with our 2 Pokemon. Now Sinistra is able to actually take it down to really low health, as we're even able to confuse it, and it still manages to hit the Matcha Gotcha and defeat Mismagius, and by proxy also defeating Iono as well, giving us another gym badge, and a gym badge which honestly I thought was going to be much more difficult. I really feared this was going to be a pain. Next is our journey over to Mela and her Fire-type squad, but before that, we should make ourselves ready up, and Mela is going to be, of course, using Fire types. Now, she's going to be using a Torkoal and a Steel Poison Reverum, which has 2 Fire-type moves, so it will be quite a difficult battle. We don't need to stress too much about it, but let's see how it actually turns out. We start by actually using Confuse Ray against the Torkoal to make sure it has a harder time hitting us when combined with multiple Incinerates, which actually worked out perfectly as we defeated the Torkoal. Next up is the Shedar Starmobile, where it keeps speed boosting itself, so we keep trying to hit it as much as we can using Incinerate until we finally get defeated. So we send in Sinistra, where we keep using Matcha Gotcha, which honestly is a fantastic move, which actually does decent damage and also even heals us up, keeping us alive for long enough that we can take the Shedar Starmobile down to half HP. We then use Crunch on Mighty hyena, a move which we added to Mighty hyena earlier in our run. If you guys remember, I mentioned it. it honestly works out perfectly as we are able to defeat Mela, and now we made it halfway through the journey, but there is still loads to go, ladies and gentlemen. We've done a lot of good so far, but we still have a long way to go. With our next battle being as the Thickworm Chad Orthworm, we're able to actually defeat it using only Morpeko with Thunder Shocks, and for the second phase, Arven helps us out actually with his Toad Scroll, and before you know it, the big worm has been defeated. I will be honest, I feel bad for Orthworm. It's like the weakest and easiest of the Titans to defeat, unless you are doing a full poison run. Otherwise, you're not really going to struggle that much. Either way, we steal some Herba Mystica, make our way over to Cascarafa, where another battle is going to await us. This time, we're going to be creeping over to Mr. Unibrow and beating his minion. After doing that, we are then ready to take on Kofu after doing some weird, sketchy gambling for him over at the market. Either way, he basically uses mostly water types, which is lucky for us as Carmine and her squad has 3 really strong Pokemon against his team. So when Veluza comes out, our swinging Machagotcha Sinistcha is able to one-hit KO it. When Wugtrio comes in, we again get a one-hit KO after suffering from a water pulse that confuses us. This doesn't stop us again though, as we're, well, like I said, one-hit KOing it with the Machagotcha. With Cramominable only remaining, it is terrestrialized, but once again, we critically hit it with Machagotcha, leaving it barely alive with a final hit, finishing off the Crab Boy, meaning that Cascarafa's gym fell apart really fast, and we have another victory under our belt. And I'll be real, this one was actually relatively easy, just because of the fact that the Machagotcha does so much damage, and it's all water types. Now, since we are in Cascarafa, we also head over to the Delibird store where we buy a Firestone. We actually also realized we had a second one, but we needed to evolve our Vulpix into a Ninetales, which will make sure that our moveset on our Ninetales will be actually stronger by adding Nasty Plot and Flamethrower to it instead, which both of those will make it way more powerful. Now, all of that is perfect, as our next battle is arguably one of the most annoying people in this game, as we're making our way over to Atticus. Now, his team is full on a poison type team, so we will be struggling quite hard against it, but with our newly acquired Ninetales, we are going to have an interesting time. So we start off by going for the Nasty Plot to boost our special attack, and then we Flamethrower down the Skuntank as well as the Revavroom, so both Skuntank and Revavroom both full. Now for the next Pokemon, which is Muck, which comes out next, we actually switch in and go for the Machagotcha on Sinistcha, which unfortunately doesn't have a lot, of damage done to it, so we try going for Hex the second time around, and this time it actually does way more damage. We survive on just 1 HP and manage to defeat the Muck before the Starmobile comes out and defeats our little friend. Now we're able to actually use Mightyena with Crunch over and over again, as we're actually able to do a ton and deal a ton of damage, but not enough to defeat Atticus. As such, we'll have to come back to this battle again a little bit later, but first we should go out and head out and capture our final teammate, the 5th member of our common squad. So we head back to Kitakami, and now that we're here, we're going to be capturing and adding a bug grass type Pokemon called Liavani to our squad. Now, Liavani is bug and grass, which is great, as that combination will give us some interesting stuff to work with. Now, this will be completing our current team as Carmine, as she doesn't really have any more Pokemon in the teal masks. There might be more in Indigo Disc, but in the teal mask, this is our full team. Now that we have Liavani in our squad, it's time to take on Atticus once more. So we hope on basically our Ninetales being the best thing that we can use here, and that's exactly what we do. Ninetales is out first. We go for Nasty Plot again to boost our special attack, but we make sure to do it actually 2 times. We Nasty Plot twice to do even more damage this time around, which actually works out perfectly, as Flamethrower one-hits the Skuntank and even one-hit KOs the Revavroom as well. Then when the Muck comes in, we're able to use Extra Sensory to take it down, which again works out perfectly, as it's more weak to Extra Sensory than it is to Flamethrower. After that, unfortunately, we do get outsped by the Navi Starmobile, which is the final Pokemon, so Mightyena comes in, where we do get poisoned by the Noxious Torque, which is an annoying move, but it did allow us to boost our attack and do a decent chunk of damage with a single Crunch. And keep in mind, we also have Intimidate, so its damage is going to be lower. Liavani then has to come in and only really be able to do very minimal damage using Slash. And finally, with Morpeko, with it coming out, we're able to do some damage with Foul Play before it gets taken down as well, leaving us with only our little friend Sinistcha, or Poltergeist Sinistcha, whatever you want to call them, left to use Hex. And honestly, it finally worked out, and we're able to defeat Atticus after getting a few Machagotchas. So this is by far the most difficult challenge we've had so far in this journey, but either way, we've made it through. Alright, now we can make it over to Medali. Now this city, well, we're going to be ordering a grilled rice balls, fire blasted, medium serving with fresh lemons? Oh dear, this is a weird combination of food, to be honest. Either way, it's time for Larry to feel the pain and power of our squad. Keep in mind, Larry uses normal type Pokemon, which are actually really rough to damage or deal with unless you have fighting types. But first up is going to be Komala. So we start with Nasty Plot on Ninetales to boost our special attack. We do get Yawned, which puts us to sleep after using a Flamethrower, which serves to be the end of Ninetales after being hit by a Slam twice. We send in Liavani with Fell Stinger, which is actually a really interesting move because when it actually, well, takes a Pokemon down with that move, it boosts our attack on Liavani. And if we manage to do that and make the Pokemon faint, it will boost our damage, I guess, which is exactly what happens against Komala. Now, this works perfectly because the Dunsparce that comes in next is able to, well, just kind of do a decent amount of damage, but a Bug Bite from us is unfortunately not enough to get it done, and we do also get paralyzed and taken out. So, we send in Mightyena instead, which lowers the attack of the Dunsparce and gives us a moment to use Howl to boost our attack, with Glare being used against us to paralyze Mightyena, but luckily Crunch still hits, and we take down the Dunsparce. Unfortunately, when Staraptor does come through though, the Intimidate is also going to be hitting us, so our Howl from earlier will now be nullified, and due to paralysis, we actually get outsped and end up losing Mightyena. However, we still have Sinistcha, which we're able to do some damage with against the Staraptor. First, we suffer from a few aerial aces, but with our Machagotcha, which we actually take almost half of Staraptor's health away, and we even end up healing ourselves, plus getting the burn against our Raptor, which again also is perfect as it's low. Basically, its attack stat is just lowered now. So when the next aerial ace hits us, we easily live through it, and just one more Machagotcha and the Birdman is gone. So meaning we have managed to defeat Larry and get ourselves another gym badge and some nice rice balls as well. So I'm gonna be real, this battle was a handful, but we still got it. But before we can even take a single breath, Nemona wants us to battle once more, with of course her team being ready to go. So we get into it right away. With Lycanroc being her first Pokemon, we try to set up Ninetales, which ends up being a mistake as the Accelerock hits us harder and takes us down. So Sinistcha has to come in and actually help out with the Machagotcha, being enough to defeat it. However, Gumi is our next threat, and for this one, we can't use Machagotcha, so we go for Foul Play twice to defeat it, because of course it has an ability which will just suck up the Machagotcha. Palmo comes out next and does paralyze us with a Spark, but it doesn't matter as the Machagotcha is strong against it and we're able to defeat it in no time. Meowscarada is of course the final threat left, and here we're able to once again use Sinistcha. We go for Foul Play, and after another Machagotcha to burn the Meowscarada, which is just perfect, it's enough to stop the Meowscarada from being able to defeat us, and we still have Mightyena left with an Ice Fang to finish up this battle. And as such, we defeated Nemona, and once again, I'm gonna be honest, she's starting to get really annoying. She is quite literally addicted to battles. It's just too much at this point. Alright, time to climb the mountain. But do we want to do that? No, but I guess I have to. Either way, Montenevera is up next, and wow, sometimes this game with all its bugs can honestly look really beautiful. Either way, after beating up Shaggy and his friends, it's time for Rhyme herself. She uses a ton of ghost types and a Toxtricity, and since it's a double battle, we will be starting off with Ninetales and Sinistcha, where we Flamethrower and Strength Sap the Mimikyu and Banette on the enemy team, which works to only really do some damage, so instead we go Flamethrower to defeat the Banette, and Mimikyu finally loses its Disguise, which is an ability that just basically gives it a free, substitute almost, right? Either way, after hitting it with Foul Play, it is gone. We are able to then defeat Mimikyu as well, but we still need to defeat, the rest of the team here. For example, she has a Terrestrialized Toxtricity and a Houndstone. So, Flamethrower and Machagotcha are enough to get the Toxtricity to fall and be defeated, and then the Houndstone finally shows up from hiding in its shadows, and we're able to take it down after an X-Scissor hit from our friend over here. And that means we've also defeated Rhyme, which was a solid battle, to be frankly honest. It wasn't too easy or too hard, it was just right down the middle, but our squad was ready to do it. We get a call from Arven in the Asado Desert about a big titan in the area, and we managed to find Iron Threads, the Quaking Earth Titan. With this big fella, we use Ninetales with a singular Flamethrower to defeat it. Literally, one hit and it's done. With of course Arven showing up for the second phase, right at the tail end to help us out with the big fella, and after which point, we've taken it out, and we get ourselves some Herba Mystica and give a sandwich to our big boy. After some running around, we make it over to Alfornada, and here we're going to be meeting up with our least favorite person ever. It's going to be Nemona. She's going to be making our life a little bit more painful than the previous time. This time around, though, we managed to at least do a bit of damage against the Lycanroc using Extra Sensory. But Sinistcha once again has to come out to finish things up with the Machagotcha. Against Sligo, we use Foul Play and Hex to defeat it, which actually works, but Palmo is stronger than Sinistcha, so it takes us out. So, Liavani, which we haven't really used much, has to come out instead. We do get paralyzed though, which makes us actually miss our first few moves until X-Scissor finally hits Seeing that it doesn't do a lot of damage though, we instead try to go for Slash, but it doesn't work out since we are paralyzed, and that stops us. Morpeko is out next though, and again, Morpeko is able to defeat Palmot after 2 foul plays, but Meowscarada is here again and it is terrestrialized, so we try to at least 1 quick attack before Morpeko falls, and Mightyena gets outsped and Flower Tricked and defeated. So yeah, basically the battle doesn't end in our favor. We end up losing for the first time against Nemona this time. But let's forget about Nemona. We are going to be doing some weird sketchy stuff and then battling the Alfornada gym. We'll be up against Tulip and her rowdy bunch of psychic types, so of course this is going to be quite interesting. Now, of course for us, we do have the advantage of some of our dark types, but with Faragiraf out first, we start by using a nasty plot on Ninetales to boost our special attack. Within that time, the Faragiraf sets up a barrier, however it doesn't really matter because we use special moves anyway, so the barrier won't stop us. And with 1 flamethrower, it actually falls. Against Gardevoir, we get a singular hit off, which is enough, and incredibly as well against the Espathra, it suffers the same fate with a single flamethrower destroying it. And since the last Pokemon is Florges, and unfortunately for Tulip, it is generally a grass type, we just go for 2 flamethrowers and it is done. We defeated Tulip and came 1 step closer to defeating all of Paldea. I mean, this team was just swept by Ninetales. We pretty much did everything with the help of Ninetales. After Counter-Strike surfing our way down the icy slopes, it's time for Gurusha, whose team is kind of filled to the brim with ice types. Lucky for us, we have the #1 antidote against ice. It's fire, baby! We start with the Ninetales and do the double nasty plot to make sure our flamethrowers will do tons of damage, but we do get freeze hacks, but don't worry, we are a fire type, so we will thaw out in no time. And when the flamethrower finally hits, it is a 1-hit KO. And for Beartic, our big boy Fox is outsped by an earthquake, so we send out Liavani instead with a Swords Dance out, which actually boosts our damage. After eating an icicle hit, we actually have just enough health to live, but before we can even get another hit off, the Aqua Jet priority actually destroys Liavani. So instead, Mightyena has to come in with the Fire Fang, which does decent damage and actually is able to actually avoid the Icicle Crash, and with a second Fire Fang, defeat Beartic from the big blue house. Either way, when Titan comes out, Fire Fang does way less damage, and the Ice Spinner is dangerously close to instantly defeating us, and eventually an Ice Shard does outspeed and destroy Mightyena. But now we have Morpeko and Sinistcha left to defeat the Titan with a foul play, but before the Pokemon comes flying in, we actually have to deal with 1 more Pokemon, which is going to be Altaria. And we're in a risky spot, but we outspeed with a Spark against Altaria, which paralyzes it, giving us some room to breathe. So we try to go for another Spark, which does tons of damage. However, 1 Moonblast later and Morpeko is gone. So Sinistcha does, however, still live, and with the Machagotcha outspeed, because again, this thing is paralyzed, so we will be outspeeding, we defeat the Altaria, and it finally falls apart and goes down, meaning we have completed our final gym battle and taken down Gurusha as well. Now, we only really have 3 more things to get sorted. First thing to do is head out and defeat the old man protecting Ortega. After doing that, it's time to take on the Fairy King himself and his squad of weirdos. So for this battle, we of course are going to be going in with Liavani out first, using Swords Dance against the Azumarill to boost our damage. Now, since we have the worst luck, the Azumarill actually uses Bounce and destroys us, because it is a, as far as I'm aware, it's a Bug-type move. So Sinistcha has to come out instead with Machagotcha, which misses the first time. We get hit with a Charm, which destroys our attack stat, but that doesn't really matter, we eventually take it out. When Dashboon comes out, we go for Strength Sap to restore our health and lower the attack on the Dashboon. After doing this twice, the damage which Dashboon actually does is far lower, so you're able to actually Machagotcha it to defeat it as well. But the battle ain't over yet. We still have Wigglytuff, which doesn't have the ability to handle the Machagotchas either, which we just end up spamming a few times, with a Rushbach, being the Starmobile, being able to finally come its way in and monster our Pokemon down to half health. But we do, of course, manage to do about half health on it with Machagotcha as well. With only a tiny amount of health left to go, Ninetales is sent in with a flamethrower, which is enough to defeat the giant Starmobile, and all that is left now is to leave Ortega behind and head out to find the False Dragon Titan. Over by the lake, the False Dragon Titan is waiting for us, and we have some wise words for it. Don't be a water type, because Liavani is able to Swords Dance, and once we've done that, quite literally a single Leaf Blade after that is able to do critical damage and take down Dondozo, leaving the Sushi Boy Tatsugiri to duke it out with us. Now, once again, Swords Dance, and we go for Leaf Blade, which is more than enough to take the little Sushi down and defeat it as well, leaving us with the last Herba Mystica in our possession needed to complete the Titan storyline with Arven for now. We'll be returning to the Herba Mystica storyline a little bit later, but for now, let's do something else. You see, we have 1 more battle remaining, and that's going to be against Airy. We head over to the North Province area 2, where we're going to be fighting the Fight Crew. Now, we're going to be waiting for, of course, Airy Eri here, and Eri's team and her final battle before the Elite Four is going to be quite difficult, but let's do this. The battle starts with us using Liavani again. Since we are up against Toxicroak, we go for Sword Stance to start off, and this is of course just to boost our damage. Then we go for Slash, which unfortunately doesn't work out well for us, as Toxicroak takes us down. We do have Ninetales and a Nasty Plot, however, and once we've done that, we're able to use without getting hit with the Toxicroak, since it decides to go for Sucker Punch, which can only hit us if we're using an attacking move, but since we're using Nasty Plot, it doesn't really matter. So once we get 2 proper Nasty Plots off, we're able to defeat the Toxicroak using some flamethrowers. With Passimian coming out next, we go for Extra Sensory again, and it's a one-hit KO against the Passimian. Even the Annihilate we're able to defeat with a single Extra Sensory, and when Lucario comes in, baby, it doesn't survive as we hit it with the flamethrower as well, leaving only the Starmobile, which also manages to get defeated actually with the help of Ninetales being able to just go for the double Extra Sensory and is able to keep us alive, meaning we defeated the final main story leader with just the help of pretty much Ninetales and Liavani. And as such, we should now be able to head over to the Elite Four. Now we're ready to take on the Elite Four. First we meet Geta, do the quiz, and then it's time to battle the first Elite Four member, which is going to be Rika. The thing with Rika is that Rika uses ground types, so we start with Liavani again and use the Sword Stances to set ourselves up to do very strong damage against Wishcash. So when we hit it with the Leaf Blade, it is a one-hit KO. And same thing goes for the rest of the team. The Camerupt actually suffers the same fate as a single Leaf Blade does it. Donphan does not survive just on basically 1 HP because the ability Sturdy is keeping it alive. However, it also misses the Stone Edge, so we finish it up with a second Leaf Blade to fully take it down. Dugtrio is next, and it manages to actually set up Sandstorm before it falls to a Leaf Blade as well. With only really Clodsire remaining, we're able to actually take it down as well, which means we fully swept through the entire team of Rikas with the help of one Pokemon. But do not get too excited, we still have 3 more Elite Four members to go. The second battle is going to be against Poppy, who mainly uses Steel types. This could be a difficult one for us, but we start with Ninetales and of course the Nasty Plot to boost our special attack. The Copperajah goes for the Stealth Rocks, but we then manage to actually outspeed and use Flamethrower to take it down. As for the Bronzong, which comes out next, here we once again go for a single Flamethrower hit, and it is critical and defeats it. However, Corviknight, which comes out next, is more scary, but once again, it doesn't really stand a single chance against our Ninetales. Same goes for Magnezone, which also does get hit with the Flamethrower, though it does survive on 1 HP due to Sturdy. After we fully defeat it though, leaving us only with Tinkaton, we are up against a Pokemon that is Terrestrialize, and we actually lose half of its HP with the Flamethrower, and we even miss it misses the first Stone Edge, allowing us to hit another Flamethrower to utterly destroy Poppy's team of Steel types. We pretty much swept through all of them with the help of Ninetales. As for Larry that comes out next, we are prepared for his Flying type squad, with of course our Ninetales being out first because we know he's going to be using a Pokemon that's going to be weak against it. We once again kick off with a Nasty Plot and then survive an Air Slash before the poor Tropius burns to a crisp. When Staraptor comes out, we manage to actually do the exact same thing again with a single hit burning down the Staraptor and defeating it. As for Oricorio, here we're able to do the same thing, a single hit and it's done for. It is a bit different once Altaria comes in though, as this big guy does survive the first hit, but we survive the Dragon Pulse against it, which is incredible that we survived it, so we go for Extra Sensory instead, which does defeat it. Flamigo is of course going to be the penultimate, or the ultimate rather, Pokemon that remains, and here it does get able to Terrestrialize into a Flying type, but it also suffers from being super weak to Flamethrower. However, it is at such a low HP that the Quick Slash from Liavani is enough to defeat it now, meaning that Larry is donezo and only one more person remains before the champ. With the last member of the Elite Four being Hassel, of course he has a giant team of Dragon types. Knowing that, and knowing that he's going to be sending out Noivern, we decide to start with Morpeko, and here we actually, well, we get hit by a Super Fang, but we go for Aura Wheel, which is perfect because it actually boosts our speed. So the first Aura Wheel does enough damage to boost our speed that we can actually outspeed Noivern the second hit and defeat it. However, when Dragalge comes out, it does hit us with a Crunch, which gets us poison, but the Aura Wheel is able to take it out as well, so somehow we survived all of this. Flapple does come in next though, and it does take us down with a Dragon Rush, but we do have a Liavani with Swords Dances out next. We do get highly damaged by the Dragon Rush, but Exeter takes out the giant Flapple, and even manages to get the Leaf Blade off on Haxorus before ultimately also being defeated. So now, Ninetales has to come in with a Nasty Plot to boost our special attack. However, the Rock Tomb slows us down, allowing the Haxorus to defeat us and actually outspeed us instead as well. With not much else being left as options, we go for Sinistcha and Shadow Ball this thing. However, next we have Bexcal, Excalibur, and this big fella is going to be a pain. However, we lower its attack with Intimidate when we send out Mighty Hina, and then we go for Play Rough. And after living through a Glaive Rush, we are now so low HP, but luckily we do have Sucker Punch, which will hit first and defeat Hassel. That means we've taken out Hassel and defeated the Elite Four, but we now have to take on the Ultimate Champion. So, the only person that we have to strut in and find is, of course, Champion Geta. Her team is a mixed bag, so it will be quite the battle to deal with. Now, first up is going to be Espathra. Lucky for us, though, we do have Crunch on our buddy Mighty Hina, so we go right for that, and it does tons of damage. However, next is going to be Go-Goat, and here we go for Fire Fang, which actually does loads of damage, and even manages to burn the Go-Goat, and this is what saves us from its physical damage, as it now is lower, and actually will not do as much. And we do also get outsped the second time around. Now we send in Liavani to hopefully set up the double swords dances to defeat the Go-Goat and whatever else comes after it. After seeing that the Play Rough from Go-Goat really doesn't do much damage, we actually go for a third swords dance, and so then when the X-Scissor finally does hit the Go-Goat, it is super strong and Liavani is super strong. However, King Gambit comes out next and destroys all the work we did with just a single Stone Edge and basically demolishes us. So Ninetales has to come in instead with a Flamethrower, defeating the giant, well, I guess Shogun, whatever you want to call him. Even after that, we get an Avalug, which suffers from a quick faith of one Flamethrower destroying it. Veluza comes in as well, and we go for the Confuse Ray to stop the Veluza from hitting us, but that doesn't end up working, and it's able to hit us with the Aqua Jet, so Morpeko, with its Aura Wheel, is able to finish off Veluza instead. Glimora is the only Pokemon which Geta has remaining in her squad, and here, once more, the Aura Wheel, which actually does tons of damage, is able to go through, and we even survive the Earth Power and able to use a second Aura Wheel to defeat Glimora. So we didn't even need to use Sinistra in this case, and we're able to defeat it, and finally, we've become a champion trainer of the Paldea region as Carmine. But there are a few more battles we have to deal with. First of those is going to be going over to Arven over at the Poco Path. He's just vibing here, and we look at some monitors with him before it's time to actually battle. Now, on his end, he's going to be starting off with the Giant Boy Gradent, and this thing is going to be interesting. So we go with the Nasty Plot to boost our special attack, but then the Gradent actually lives on 1 HP when we hit it with a Flamethrower. So we try to set up with Liavani instead, using Swords Dances and eating up a Body Slam. Next up is going to be Scovillain, and here, thanks to the Swords Dances, we're able to one-hit KO using an X-Scissor. Even Garganical, which comes out next, can handle the Leaf Blade with a 1-hit KO work in there too. I mean, damn, even Toadscruel ends up falling to just a singular Leaf Blade. Honestly, our Pokemon's really strong. Cloyster is not much luckier, as the same exact situation goes for it, with Maboostiff being the only Pokemon to not fall right away and instead defeats Liavani with a Fire Fang. But again, we do have some other Pokemon left, so an Aura Wheel from Morpeko is able to finish up the Maboostiff and give us the victory. And this also spells the end of the Titan Saga, which means that whole journey is now sorted. Next, we head back to the Uva Academy, where we find Clavel ready to rumble. We go right in, and this fight is honestly crazy. We start with Nasty Plotting our Ninetales to make sure again that our Flamethrower does enough damage to the Oranguru, which it actually does. But when the Houndoom comes in, we switch out Ninetales to save from the Houndoom and instead send in Morpeko. And we then use Thrash. Now, Thrash is a move that is very risky, but it does crazy damage and even manages to defeat the Houndoom after only 2 big hits. After being defeated by the Abomasnow, however, we send in Mighty Hina with Fire Fang, which is able to defeat the Abomasnow after it uses actually Aurora Wheel, which will make our attacks weaker overall. Amoonguss is luckily enough out next for himself, but he is actually weak to our Fire Fang, but after only 2 hits, we're able to actually cause the flinch on him and take down the Shroom. Next is our Galarian cousin Poltegeist, and here we put the thing to sleep, or we get put to sleep rather, so we have to wait a bit before our Fire Fang finally hits and 1-hit KOs the Poltegeist, leaving only Quaquaval. But good thing is that it is weak to 2 of our remaining Pokemon, with Liavani using Leaf Blade and Sinistra using a Matcha Gotcha to actually take it down and give us victory. And now that means we have only really 1 more battle left for the Starfall Street storyline. So, thanks for the battle, Clavel. You see, the next battle will take us over to the schoolyard, where we will find Cassiopeia, or her true name, which is Penny. Now, for this battle, we are going to be dealing with a full team of Evolutions, so we're going to be kicking things off with Liavani, as we know she used a full team of Evolutions to start off with. The first will be Umbreon, so we go for Swords Dance twice to boost our potential damage. Before we end the actual misery of Umbreon, we do get a single Leaf Blade off on it, and same goes for Flareon, which normally should be stronger against us, but we outspeed and are able to defeat it with 1 hit. For Leafeon, we use X-Scissor, and still it 1-hit KOs, even after being hit by a baby Doll Eyes. So when Vaporeon arrives, we actually got a little bit worried and we went for another Swords Dance to boost our stats before another Leaf Blade is able to take down Vaporeon as well. Jolteon is the penultimate Pokemon, so the second to last one, so we eat a Thunder from it, and then we one-hit KO it, baby. Leaf Blade really is a blessed move. With only Sylveon left, we destroyed the poor thing with a Leaf Blade as well, which honestly was kind of crazy, making this battle nothing more than a cakewalk for Carmine's epic squad. So, only 2 more battles stand between us and the ultimate victory in Scarlet and Violet as Carmine. So, let's head to our next task, which is going to be the ultimate rival battle against Nemona. Now, since Carmine and Nemona both give off massive big boss energy, this will be a sick battle of the ages. So here we go. To start off the battle, we have Morpeko. Now, since Lycanroc is out first, we take a drill run to the cranium before our Aura Wheel hits and does a ton of damage. And also lets us get a speed boost, which we really needed. However, it doesn't really matter since Lycanroc has a Cell Rock, which has priority and hits us faster. We then send in Mightyena next since it has Sucker Punch, but Lycanroc uses Stealth Rocks, which is really annoying, but eventually we finally take it down. Now, after taking it down, Palmot comes in next, and here we actually decide to switch in Sinistcha instead, and this actually works since the close combat from Palmot, which was going to use against our Mightyena, has no effect on Sinistcha because, well, it is a Ghost-type Pokemon, but it does have Ice Punch. However, Machagotcha does a one-hit KO, which is honestly incredible, and it heals us all the way back up. With Goodra being next, we eat an Ice Beam to the little Sinistcha's face twice before it defeats us. So Mightyena has to come in again, and here we go for the Play Rough right after a Heavy Dragon Pulse hits us, with Orthworm being the next Pokemon. Here we again hit it with a Fire Fang, which actually burns it, which is really good for us, giving us a little space to work with before Mightyena ends up being defeated. Then we send in Ninetales, which is still alive, and we're able to destroy the Orthworm with a Flamethrower. However, the Dunsparce does come in next, so we decide to go for Nasty Plot to boost our special attack after somehow surviving a drill run from it. After that, we're able to get a Flamethrower off, but then the Dunsparce goes for Coil instead of actually just ending our little fox, so that leaves us just enough space for another Flamethrower to defeat this thing. This leaves Nemona with only Meowscarada left. We try to hit it with a Flamethrower, which we do after living through a Thunder Punch, and with a singular Flamethrower, we did it. Nemona is now defeated and beaten, meaning we have one mission left before our journey is done. So we run through Area 0, defeating all the Pokemon and Paradox Pokemon blocking our path, which does take a little bit of time, but eventually we do make it down to the room where Robot Turo, is waiting for us to finally battle. So our first target in this team is going to be the Iron Moth. So we have Ninetales out and we go for Extra Sensory, which does about half HP damage to the giant moth, but it ends up using Sludge Wave against us, which does loads of damage, so we're able to hit a second Extra Sensory again, but after that, our boy actually falls. So Mightyena has to come in instead with a Sucker Punch to defeat the Iron Moth. Next out, though, is Iron Hands. It fakes us out, which flinches us, but once we are able to hit our Play Rough, it is not enough because the Iron Hands has actually Drain Punch, which saves it, so that defeats Mightyena. Liavani has to come in instead with a Swords Dance to boost our damage before being hit by Iron Head. After doing Swords Dance one more time and eating another Iron Head, we're ready to finally sweep through the Iron Hands as we hit it with a singular Leaf Blade to defeat it. However, Iron Juggalies is out next and has Air Slash, which demolishes us so hard. And even when Morpeko comes out, we eat a Flamethrower before Aura Wheel defeats it. Iron Thorns comes in next, and the Earthquake from it totally ends our life. With only Sinistcha remaining, we get the Machagotcha to defeat the Iron Thorns, but there is still Iron Bundle left to deal with. It sets up Snowscape, and actually this leaves enough space for us to go for Machagotcha, which is a one-hit KO. But this doesn't change the fact that we still have one last target to deal with, which is Iron Valiant. Now, the first thing it does is the Spirit Break from it, which manages to lower our special attack, but it doesn't really matter as Machagotcha does tons of damage and even gets the burn off. So we just need to eat another Spirit Break before our second Machagotcha is able to get the Iron Valiant low enough where the burn damage actually defeats it. And there it is, y'all. We've beaten and completely destroyed all of Paldea and proven that Carmine can become the champion of this region and complete the full journey using only her team. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for watching. Subscribe for more videos and check out one of our other ones. Peace out.